There is no European online travel market. I know that sounds a little strange coming from Phocuswright, but Europe is a market where online and offline have truly merged. As a matter of fact, close to half of all travel is now booked on desktops, laptops, and mobile devices, and in a couple of years, that will surpass the 50% mark. But how could a region so entrenched in traditional travel, including its high street travel agencies, tour operators, bed banks, bed and breakfast, and boutique hotels, have shifted so much online and so fast? And we all know that there are some processes that may never go online, like complex tours. Matter of fact, online keeps soaring, growing at twice the rate of the market as a whole, begging the question, how far can it go? Can a market like Europe truly go all digital? Europe has always been a market of contrasts. There are some countries that have already soared past the 50% mark in terms of online distribution. So it's not out of the realm to see a market like the UK or Scandinavia, two markets that have the highest percentage of travel booked online, head toward that digital frontier. But there are some countries in Europe that still have a long way to go. Again, Europe has two sides, right? It has its entrenched tour operators and young innovators, legacy carriers and LCCs, some markets resisting tech and others embracing it. The end result is a marvelous juxtaposition of classic global brands, young startups, entrenched traditions, and new traveler behavior. But no matter what the forces are pulling the travel industry backwards or forwards, or up or down, whether voluntary or forced, it is headed in one direction as voice, AI, and blockchain all push ahead. So what I'd like to do over the next couple of minutes is talk about some of the key developments that's shaping the European travel market. The first one is growth has rebounded. And this is good news after a decline in 2016. We see in 2017 the market reaching an all-time high. And that's good news despite the fact that we have Brexit concerns, unemployment that continues in Spain and Italy, and other challenges in the marketplace. As a matter of fact, we see the market growing about 3% annually over the next 5 years. And Europe represents about a third of the US travel marketplace. Our next trend has to do with competition versus consolidation, because we see both happening in the European market. So consolidation, particularly in the airline sector. But Europe has always been a very competitive market. It has one of the most fragmented hotel markets in the world. And for online travel agencies, there's also a lot of room for growth. And let me put that in perspective. So in the US, for example, the two leading online travel agencies in the world, Booking and Expedia, represent 95% of the online travel agency marketplace. That really doesn't leave room for much else. But in Europe, that figure is just 64%. So yes, lots of opportunity for growth, specialized OTAs and intermediaries, those specializing in a certain segment or geography, a certain language. And as a matter of fact, we have lots of really strong pan-European and local brands, several of who you'll hear from over the next couple of days, including Trainline, Cruise.co.uk, and Invia Group brands such as Fluging. But we also are expecting consolidation in this online travel agency space as the stakes keep getting higher in terms of marketing and technology spend. Already ProSieben, a roll-up, has been selling office access assets, and eDreams has also considered a sale, although it has since changed its strategy. Also some very interesting startups. Of course, we heard from many this morning. Kiwi's another one, Get Your Guide, who you'll hear from today. That brings us to our second trend, which is hotels play catch-up. Because Europe has always been a market, an online market, that's very much supplier direct, very strong in the supplier direct piece because of rail, for example, low-cost carriers, where we might see 70, 80, 90% of online distribution booked on their websites and their apps. And we know that the legacy carriers would like to be in a very similar position with instituting GDS fees, Lufthansa, IAG, Air France, KLM, to kind of continue to push that supplier direct strategy and bypass intermediaries. But hotels have not been so lucky. So we mentioned the fragmentation. 70% of all hotels in Europe are independent. So because of that, they're a lot more reliant on intermediaries, not just for distribution, but for marketing, revenue management, channel management, all sorts of tech and solutions. So here we have a segment that's more reliant on online travel agencies. But that's going to change, right? Because we know that rate parity rules have been mostly favorable to hotels and their pricing. Hotels are really pushing those book direct campaigns, guest technology, loyalty programs. Well, let's just say the industry will be taking baby steps, meaning that we're going to see some change, but it's not overly dramatic, but it is going in the right direction, going towards more of a supplier direct strategy. And I know we're going to hear a little more of that from our next speaker and our hotel panel tomorrow. Well, speaking of lodging, what about vacation rentals or private accommodation, as we like to call them at Phocuswright? So renting a villa, renting an apartment, a home, has always been entrenched in the European travel marketplace, right? I mean, Booking.com has always had over 1 million properties that are non-hotel properties. It is just now that Booking is shouting at the rooftops, hey, we are a competitor in this space. We want to be taken seriously in the home rental arena. And for good reason. Now, Airbnb, of course, 4 million listings globally, and Europe is its biggest market. Why so much attention on Airbnb? Well, if Airbnb were public, according to the market cap estimates that we've seen, it would rank as the second largest online travel agency in the world, ahead of Ctrip, Expedia, and TripAdvisor. But with all that praise and glory comes a lot of scrutiny, right? We know that there's also a lot of lawmakers and regulators that would like to see it shut down, as well as protesters and environmentalists. But really, when you think about, is the home rental market going to make an impact on the hotel industry, we need to talk to consumers, to travelers. So recent research that we've done, we've talked to hotel guests in Europe, and more than 7 in 10 of them have considered a home rental when they booked their hotel. So that means that they are considering both in their shopping, and there's a lot more competition for the guest. So hotels aren't going to sit idly by watching the home rental market explode. But is it a case of too little, too late? It's been 10 years since Airbnb launched, and since Phocuswright wrote its definitive report on the home rental marketplace. So we are seeing some acquisitions and some mergers, and some partnerships, but we know that this is a volume game. Will these chain hotels ever get to a place where they can compete effectively with an Airbnb or even a HomeAway? And finally, that takes us to our last trend, which is the mobile revolution. Or should I say, what mobile revolution? Well, first of all, mobile has always been integrated into the travel industry. I mean, it is integrated into travel, but also, and it continues to grow. But look at this carefully. By 2021, 2/3 of online sales in Europe will still be booked through the desktop and laptop. So whether or not that's because of the type of product, the complexity of the product, or whether or not it's just traveler behavior, I mean, really, it's an anomaly perhaps that half of all online bookings for travel are booked through mobile device in Asia. And again, we're gonna have a whole morning dedicated to opportunities in the Asian market tomorrow morning. So, welcome everyone to Phocuswright Europe. Whether the market goes fully digital or fully mobile, we know it will happen, but maybe not so soon. Over the next 2 days, we're going to hear from some of the smartest, most interesting people in the travel industry as they tell us what they see shaping travel distribution and technology in Europe and beyond. So with that said, following a decade of impressive public administration and government roles, she's now in charge of digital transformation at one of the world's top hotel brands. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chief Digital Officer for Okar Hotels, Maud Bailey.